Hi, this is Rob Duroy with the Metalogic StoragePoint team. And I just wanted to give you a quick overview of the archiving, and tiered storage capability in our 3.0 product. This is a completely new feature set in our 3.0 product. It expands on the blob offloading or blob remoting capabilities we had in our 2X product. So, 2X and the other, blob offloading, blob remoting, whatever you want to call them, solutions out there. It was in the database or it wasn't in the database. That was kind of the extent of what they did. This takes it to another level. So we can now age that content. We can, based on you accumulating retained versions, based on pieces of metadata changing, we can move those blobs to less expensive tiers of storage. So I'm not just taking it out of the database and sticking it on some file system. I can start moving it to just incrementally, or exponentially less expensive tiers of storage over time, and you define those rules. You can go in and by really anything, by content type, by list library, by web, by site collection. You can go in and cause that to happen. And I mean, really, the goal here is I've got if you do this right, you are only making those incremental investments in storage in your less or your least expensive tiers of storage. So if you set this up correctly, you're only going to have a little bit of expensive storage. You're going to have a little bit more that's moderately priced, and a little bit more that's inexpensive, and then a whole lot that's cheap. So I'm just making room. I'm sliding that content or moving that content to this less expensive tiers of storage, making room in the more performant tiers of storage for new content coming in. So if you want to look at it like, how you just store things in your home, right? You've got like a safe in your house, and that's where you put the real important stuff. And then you've got kind of a trunk laying around, and it's bigger and it holds more stuff, but it's less expensive. You've got a filing cabinet, even bigger, holds more stuff, even less expensive, and then you've just got cardboard boxes laying around that have stuff in it that you never unpacked from the last time you moved. The goal here is, as I'm storing more stuff, stuff like, so the stuff that's important to me today might not be important to me a month from now, a year from now, 2 months from now. So it's coming out of the safe, it's going into the trunk. Then you move or you do your spring clean, you're like, oh, this is even less important to me now, so I'm going to move it to the filing cabinet. And then eventually it gets into a cardboard box, and it's very inexpensive to go out and buy more cardboard boxes. It's very expensive to go out and buy another safe or another file cabinet or another trunk. So just a kind of real world, everyday life, visualization of what the goal is here. Just a quick demo to kind of visualize this. So I've got a storage profile defined here. This one and the last one I showed was using RBS. This one's using EBS. They can run side by side and coexist in the same environment. Single endpoint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload a document to SharePoint. It's going to go to this active blob store, and then I've got this retained versions rule defined. So what's going to happen is when I upload a second version of that document to the same list, it's going to cause the first version to get archived off to the Azure cloud. So this is just a retained version rule, and it's simple. So I can create ranges and tier it. I just chose here to say everything except current. So it's going to keep the current version on the active blob store, and then it's going to start siphoning off the older versions to the Azure cloud. And again, you can see the different rule types here: metadata change, aging, and you can drill down and define these at any scope within your hierarchy. So I'm going to go over to that site. I'm just going to upload we're going to pick one, just a small TIFF file here. That's going to get uploaded into SharePoint because that's done asynchronously. Next time the agent runs, it'll pick that up and move it up to the cloud. I'm sorry, move it to the active blob store is what I meant to say. And there it is sitting in the active blob store. You can see the file is version 1. I'm going to go ahead and upload that file again, creating a V2. If I go look at the version history for that file, you can see now I have two versions. I have version 1 and version 2. So if I go look at the StoragePoint details, version 2 is sitting in the cache because the agent hasn't picked it up yet. Version 1 is still sitting in the active blob store. So again, next time the agent runs, which should be in a couple seconds here, it's going to pick up version 1, move it up to the Azure cloud, and then it's going to take version 2 and put it on the active blob store. And this all happens, no effect on the end user. It all happens behind the scenes. There's no manual operation here. So let me go back to version 2. The agent picked it up and it's sitting in the active blob store now. And version 1 is sitting up in the archive blob store, which is in the Azure cloud. So if I go look at that, here's my shared documents. There's 145v1, which is now just this link file, which points to the file in the Azure cloud, and then you have the version 2, which is sitting in the blob store. If I go to the Azure cloud and refresh this, this is just a kind of a freeware explorer type app you can get online. There's version 1. And if I wanted to, well, actually I'd have to download it, I guess, with this client. But you can see the files there. It got moved. StoragePoint successfully moved it up to the cloud. If you look at this, I mentioned this link file. What that's there for is for DR purposes. So for some reason, you restore an older content database and don't restore your blob store, which is something you don't have to do, and we'll actually be coming out with a white paper that explains how our architecture handles that scenario. And this is part of that. What happens is it restores to this link file. This link file points to the file in the cloud, and then we collapse the references. So it basically automatically collapses it down to whatever the content database is currently referencing. So very simple, very clean. No heavy lifting from an end user perspective. Once the rules are set up, it's very easy to work with. One other thing I wanted to point out is you can also surface this capability inside the information management policy. So if you wanted to enable a site collection owner to go in and create these archiving rules, you can do that. So I have it enabled. I can tell what I can specify what endpoints I want them to be able to work with. So if I go back over to this Gears home, go to the library settings, go into my information management policy settings, you can see we add a policy feature here on the end, and that allows me to define the rules here inside of the information management policy. So this would allow IT to say, we're just going to make these different tiers of storage available to you. You use what you want. We're going to give you a chargeback report at the end of the month, and that's what you're going to pay for the storage. So you're allowing them to control where the content within their site collection is being stored based on the different tiers or endpoints you make available to them. And with that, that's it.